All right, welcome to the Gaming Lounge podcast, episode 24. Once again, I'm your host, Sebastian, and I'm joined by Dory. How's everything going, Dory?
Seb, good to see you. Things are going great. I am currently looking at gaming laptops and thinking about how expensive gaming is, and that's how it's going for me. But yeah, generally pretty good. We got a couple big news topics, and also I finished up Stellar Blade and Dragon Age, and you've been playing Astro Bot, so we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, what any laptops in particular that you're looking at? Like what brand or what kind of specs?
No, I literally just fired up like a YouTube video, and I was like, because I was watching. We'll be talking about it later, but the PS5 Pro and stuff has made me think more about gaming laptops and stuff like that, and like if I ever wanted to upgrade. And we've talked about that a little bit last week and maybe the week before. And I do like my Nitro 5 a lot, but I had to upgrade it to 16 just to make it like viable for modern games. And even then, it's got it doesn't have a great certain aspects of it are not up to snuff for the current generation. So I'm just looking around. But yeah, if I get more specific, I'll let you know. I'm just looking at this YouTube video about it from this channel, PC Builder. So they're on the budget end at this point, which is where I'm at. Because I'm not spending. I think their top end one was like $3,000. I'm like, I would never spend that. But yeah, there's stuff under 1,000 I would definitely look at. So
If I was gonna spend $3,000 on a computer, I'd get a desktop. I would not spend $3,000 on a laptop.
yeah,
You could have a beautiful PC set up for that price.
yeah.
Anyway, so we got a couple topics to talk about. First, I want to hit on some news about Tony Hawk, potentially a new game coming out potentially. So Tony Hawk is apparently working with Activision. According to, I'm going off GamesRadar.com, and it says appearing on Mythical Kitchen's Last Meal series. Tony Hawk teased the announced new project for the first time. Quote, I wish I could tell you more, but I can tell you that I've been talking to Activision again, which is insanely exciting, Hawk said. We're working on something. This is the first time I said that publicly. So, Dory, what do you think this is? Do you think it's like a remaster or remake, or is this like a new game? What do you think?
The way he's saying it, how he's excited about it, makes me think that it's more of a new game than an old one. I don't know if he would really like. They've already remade and remastered Tony Hawk 1 and 2, which were great games. I think they were in my top 10 for that year. And Kim and I had a whole bunch of fun playing them. I loved them, except that downhill level. That level would go to hell. Like generally speaking, it was super fun. The soundtrack was great. I had such a good time with it. I think it's time. I mean, at this point, to do a new Tony Hawk game. I think there is definitely an audience for it. You know, a lot of people bought that game. A lot of people were hyped for it. It got decent reviews. I mean, I don't think it got any 9s, but it got a lot of 7s and 8s from what I recall. I think even IGN gave it an 8. So yeah, it was a really good time. And I think he's talking about a new game. I mean, they could remake 3, or was there a 4? I don't even know if there was a 4. There was a 4. Okay. So maybe they could do like 3 and 4 like they did 1 and 2, but I just don't really see the point. 1 and 2 are the most beloved ones, right? Unless 3 is like the most beloved. I can't recall.
I believe 2 and 3 are the most.
Okay, beloved. 2 and 3. Yeah. So maybe it is 3, but I have a strong belief here, and this is just pure speculation. But I feel like he's talking about a new title. I think it's time. I think that came out in the pandemic, right? 2020, 2021, something like that. So it was a while ago now. And Activision, I bet, has gotten a feel for, okay, there's still an audience for these games.
It came out in 2020.
2020, yeah, that's what I thought. So, yeah, I think it's time for a new one, and I would love to see it. I would love to play it, especially as long as it's keeping that core. I would love to. I mean, more than seeing 3 or 4, I would love to see a remake of Tony Hawk Underground, like bundle 1 and 2. I remember playing Tony Hawk Underground when I was a kid. I loved it. Thought it was a great game. I've never played it since, but I've seen some speedruns of it. Still looks like a really fun game. So I think that would be a cool second bet if they're not talking about that. But I don't see them bringing Underground back. A spin-off of a game, of a franchise that Activision barely pays any attention to anymore, feels unlikely to me. But I can dream.
Yeah, I think what people want is the Underground series to be remastered, and I know people want 3. 3 has a 97 on Metacritic on PS2.
Oh right, wow, yeah.
And Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2 has a 98 on Metacritic. So obviously those games are universally acclaimed, one of the best ever. I think people want 3 in Underground, but I have a feeling it's gonna be a new game. I just feel like it's time for like a new Tony Hawk game. Although the Tony Hawk Pro Skater 5 was a disaster, so I don't know, but I think it's been a while now. It's time. And because Pro Skater 5, which was a disaster, came out in 2015, so it's been 9 years, and we have not gone at anything new since then, besides like Skate Jam, which is like a mobile thing. So it's really outside the remaster in 2020. We've gotten absolutely no Tony Hawk game, so it's time for a new Tony Hawk game. So this is exciting. Even if it's a remaster, it's exciting. The remasters of 1 and 2 were awesome, so I'm excited. All right, so let's move on now to some bad news, unfortunately, because both you and I are Annapurna fans. So apparently the entire staff of Annapurna Interactive has resigned this month following a dispute with its owner. I'm going to read off Bloomberg from Jason Schreier. The entire staff of Annapurna Interactive, the video game publishing division of Megan Ellison's Annapurna Studio, resigned this month following a dispute with its owner. Annapurna Interactive president Nathan Gary and his team had been negotiating with Ellison, the daughter of billionaire Larry Ellison, to spin off the video game division as an independent entity. When Ellison pulled out of the negotiations, Gary and other executives resigned and were followed by around 24 other staffers. Quote, all 25 members of the Annapurna Interactive team collectively resigned, Gary said. Gary and the group said in a joint statement, "This was one of the hardest decisions we ever had to make, and we did not take this action lightly." A spokesperson for Annapurna confirmed that it had explored a spin-off and said the parties failed to reach an agreement, which led to the resignations. Quote, our top priority is continuing to support our developer and publishing partners during this transition, Ellison said in a statement in Bloomberg News. We're committed to not only our existing slate of games, but also expanding our presence in the interactive space as we continue to look for opportunities to take more integrated approach to linear and interactive storytelling across the film and TV and gaming and theater. The exodus has led to chaos as game developers partnering with Annapurna are trying to figure out what this means for their upcoming projects. As a publisher, Annapurna is responsible not only for funding the games, but for handling services such as quality assurance, adapting the products for local markets, and marketing. Over the past few days, game makers working with Annapurna have scrambled to find new points of contact and figure out whether the company will continue to honor its agreements. The spokesperson said that all existing games and projects will remain under Annapurna. New president Hector Sanchez has told developers that the company will honor existing contracts and replace staff who have left. According to people who asked to not be identified because the conversations were private, Sanchez, originally a co-founder of Annapurna Interactive, was brought back last month. Annapurna's video game division has developed a reputation for publishing critically acclaimed titles made by small teams, racking up awards with games such as Outer Wilds, Stray, and Cocoon. Last month, Annapurna announced a deal to partner with the Finnish gaming company Remedy Entertainment to bring their critically acclaimed Control and Alan Wake franchises to film and TV. The Hollywood Reporter said earlier that Annapurna Interactive's top executives had quit, but not that the entire team had departed. So, how do you feel about this news, Dory? What was your first reaction to
this? This is unprecedented. I mean, I've never heard of this happen in my entire life, and I'm not going to say I'm some kind of business expert, but I feel like I've never heard a story, especially in the video games industry, let alone any other industry, where someone said the negotiation failed, everybody left, everybody, the whole team walked out. Now, details seem to be tight-lipped about what the spinoff was, what was going on. I'm sure there's contracts and NDAs going on there. But regardless, somebody made a great point on Twitter, and I forget who it was, so I apologize. But they were basically like, these people either knew that their jobs were cooked, like they were done if this didn't happen, or that because the thing failed that they were going to get fired anyway or something. Like there is very little reason to resign from your job like this in total unity unless something incredibly bad is going to happen because a particular deal doesn't go through. I think that's fair to say. I've never seen this happen before. And I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying the people who did it were in the wrong for doing it at all. I think they know their own circumstances well enough to know that that was probably the right call for them and was probably the right thing to do, given whatever was going on. Now, of course, they're just going to be replaced. It's not really going to affect the current I mean, I'm sure it actually, in fact, will impact it because think about, you've got to replace about 25 people. That's a lot of people with particular sets of skills. I guess they're going to go save their daughter now. Anyway, they have a particular set of skills, and like those skills are like hard. Like those are hard like tech skills, right? That you've got to replace. This is not just like talking to people, and this is marketing. This is like budget. This is like publishing. Like, and they have like big titles, right? We talked about some of them, like Stray and Outer Wilds, and it's wild to think about this. Like, Annapurna is such a huge publisher, and they do so much good in the industry. I feel like, hopefully that motorcycle's not coming in. But anyway, so I feel like the games industry this year can't go literally 1 week, because we were just talking about like Visions of Mana Studio closing down last week, without some part of it just falling through. It's bonkers, and this whole situation is kind of crazy.
Yeah, I agree. I've heard that they're considering starting a new studio themselves. All those people. So I'm curious how that works out.
Yeah, that would be really cool. Also, apologies to our listeners. There's some cooking going on in the background, so if you hear some noises.
Yeah, no worries. So this is big news. Of course, Annapurna is one of the best indie developers there is, publishers. But I mean, are they even indie anymore? They're pretty huge now, right? So
they definitely are like a part of that conversation. Is like when are you too big to be considered indie anymore? Mm-hmm. And I definitely think Annapurna fits under that. I think Devolver Digital is similar in that conversation of like, are they even indie developers? Like, they definitely make games that feel like they have indie vibes, but are they really indie publishers? Like, they hit so many, like they target so many people and they get so many people. And then also like, especially with Devolver Digital, right? Their crazy like sketches that they do every year are like hotly anticipated by so many people and like beloved. So I don't know. It definitely it's definitely a discussion. But if those 25 people, or however many it is, break off and start their own studio, that's definitely an indie studio. I don't think you can get much more indie than an already probably indie studio staff breaking off and forming their own.
I'm curious how how Annapurna manages. That's a lot of talent gone. So like, you can't. It's not easy just to replace a bunch of people like that all at once. So I'm curious how it's gonna play out. This is big news. The other big news was the fact about Remedy, like, because obviously Remedy was working with them to make Alan Wake and Control a TV series, which was exciting news. But it sounds like nothing changes in that regard. So, this is just came out of nowhere. I feel like I just randomly.
Yes, absolutely out of nowhere.
Yeah, so it's sad. It's sad to hear. But
for sure.
But at least like they didn't get laid off. Maybe they're just gonna start a new studio. So
yeah, I think that'd be awesome too. I think they should call it Anna Dogna, and just like the opposite of Annapurna. Anyway, Anna Wolfna. Anyway, sorry. Still very mad at Annapurna that they didn't change their name while the Stray like titles were dropping and add like an extra R to their name. I think that was a missed opportunity, and someone from Annapurna should hire me. I mean, you guys are lacking on staff now, so I mean, I'm open and available, and you guys are too, by the looks of it. But yeah, no, in all seriousness, this is a messy situation. I hope more. I'm sure it won't, but just because the way business works with NDAs, but I hope more comes out about it, because it's kind of wild to just see like, that like there's a side deal and that's what caused everybody to resign. Like that doesn't sound major, but I'm sure like it must have been major, because why else would they have resigned? So I don't know. I don't know what's going on, obviously, and Jason Schreier only knows so much, so we know even less. But yeah, it's another frustrating, sad thing that's comes out of the games industry this year. Best of luck to everybody there, but I'm sure, I hope that a lot of those people will be doing well in no time, because I mean, working for Annapurna, you got a lot of stuff under your belt. Jason Schreier did confirm that the Alan Wake project wouldn't be affected. They were under some kind of separate contract. It doesn't matter to them. Not that it doesn't matter to them, but logistically, it's not really going to impact anything. So for people who care about that, I'm more interested in the worker side of it, but that is important to note. But I mean, I just think ultimately, like what we were talking about earlier, I mean, this is absolutely going to impact some projects. There's no way it doesn't. They can say, oh, we're going to replace the staff. And how do you replace 25 people with very particular skills in a short amount of time, such that it doesn't impact a single game in the last fiscal quarter of 2024? There ain't no way. So, yeah, I'm very skeptical that this is not going to be a bumpy ride. You just lost your whole team. There's no way this is not a bumpy ride.
Agreed. Yeah, I don't see how you replace people this fast, if ever. So
yeah.
We'll see how it plays out. Do you have anything more to add before we move on? Or
no, I just would like the games industry to stop burning down every single week. That would be nice, and I would love another a week of somebody telling me that Activision bought all their employees free puppies and everything's going to be great, and that would be nice, as opposed to this. And like, I know that sounds comically positive, but we've had so many comically negative headlines that I'd like just a little bit of balance. Like Visions of Mana Studio puts out a game, believe it or not, immediately shut down. Unsuccessful game, people are laid off. Successful game, believe it or not, also laid off. So yeah. It's a bummer right now, but we've got other stuff to talk about. So I've said about all I got.
All right. So last bit of news this episode, the PS5 Pro was revealed by Sony, and in a presentation with Mark Cerny. Mark Cerny, the architect of PlayStation, talking in his alien language. You basically really have to know how hardware works and all the terminology he throws at you. So anyone that was expecting like a video game showcase from that presentation was gonna be disappointed. But at the same time, I was disappointed with the showcase, because like they showed games like running on the PS5 Pro, but it really didn't just demonstrate the power of the Pro really that well. Like this was the showcase. You didn't have to do a whole showcase, but you could at least like show like Wolverine or something. It's like this is what it looks like on the Pro. Like this is you know what I mean? Like you could have. They did it. I think they did a really poor job with the marketing in the showcase. I know it was meant to be like a hardware thing, but a focus. Yeah. But they still showed gameplay of like Hogwarts Legacy and like Spider-Man 2, and it just didn't.
And Last of Us Part 2 as well.
Yeah, and Last of Us Part 2, and it didn't really stand out. Because first of all, you can't tell it's streaming anyway, so that doesn't really help either. But go ahead.
This was bad, and Sony should honestly feel bad. I have extremely negative opinions about this. I mean, we'll get into it. Not even starting with the price point, but it's just like I felt like I was Mr. Chang from Community, where he's like squinting and like looking into that piece of paper, like that meme or Jive or whatever. I was like squinting, looking at the screen, like I'm really trying to look at these fucking grass follicles and try to figure out like which one is slightly sharper. Like it just doesn't move me at all in terms of like discussion and stuff. I'm all for better performance if it really impacts your game. I think there are certain games that might be boosted or helped or enhanced by this like hardware. But yeah, I agree with you that the showcase did the negative for me. I already wasn't going to buy this, but now I'm like actively suspicious of people who have 700 to spare. I mean, this is like Joker burning money in the Dark Knight, like levels of like, if you have money to spare, then go for it. And I get that it's for a particular audience, and that audience obviously is not me. I didn't buy the PS4 Pro either. Yeah, I didn't like this at all, really. It didn't do much for me. Also, Mark Cerny's just kind of unnerving. He's very calm. I don't know what it is, but he's got like a very calm kind of aura going on, and I don't like it. It's disquieting. He should be more excited about what he's trying to sell me, which I don't want. But I feel like Mark Cerny should put a little more into it. But whatever.
I think. I mean, generally people that work on hardware, like behind the scenes, are introverted. I don't think.
Yeah,
he's not a public speaker.
For sure.
Like
I'm being silly. I'm being a little silly here, or tongue in cheek. But I actually don't think I've seen him in either a long time or at all. So this was kind of my introduction to him, or like I've heard of him, of course, right? But I don't think I'd ever seen him talk before. So it's definitely a different vibe that I'm used to, because I'm so used to watching the Nintendo Directs where they're like full of making really bad zingers and like so excited to show you new stuff. Or like Xbox, where it's all like professional and they're like, oh, we're here to show you the latest and greatest in gaming. And then Mark Cerny like might as well be sitting on a sofa like saying like, all right, we're going to talk about teraflops. You're going to get kind of excited, maybe. But it was just a different vibe. It's not a good or bad thing. It's just something funny that I noticed. But yeah, Seb, what else did you think about this whole thing? I know we got some stuff about it too.
Well, let me read the article from Tech Radar, and then I'll give my take on it. All right, so Tech Radar says PlayStation 5 Pro has been announced and officially revealed by Sony when it comes to confirmation of the PS5 Pro specs we've all been waiting to hear about. While the individual specifics of every component haven't been fully revealed, I guess, namely the graphics, GPU, and the CPU, we've got really clear image of what's going to power the boosted version of the PS5 in almost all departments from an official blog post. Top headline is that the PS5 Pro specs will offer a much more capable experience as based around offering higher fidelity graphics and more reliable frame rates of 60 frames per second or more. There's a larger and more capable GPU that will offer 45% faster rendering overall, as well as complementary features to the graphics unit of advanced ray tracing, a boost to dynamic lighting and shadows in games, as well as AI-driven upscaling tech called PlayStation Spectral Super Resolution. That's PlayStation's version of that, which will add clarity and greater detail. Away from the GPU, there are changes to storage capacity and Wi-Fi, while the unconfirmed rumors are that the CPU is the same. We open up somewhat to offer extra speed. PS5 Game Boost is rather an enhancement feature, boosting resolution and performance across older PS4 and PS5 games. So the big thing is it enhances not just PS5 games, but PS4 games. Though it is worth noting that the console won't come with a disc drive out of the box. It's like, I believe you have to buy it for like $20-$30 to get the disc drive. Not really an issue for me. I buy everything digital now, and Dory's has a digital only PlayStation, so neither of us bothers us. But still, kind of for $700, you expect to have a disc drive.
Yeah. It's this is the other part, right? There should not only should there be a disc drive if you're charging people $700, and again, I understand this for enthusiasts with people with money on their hands, yada yada. But I guess I just don't understand those people. But there's no vertical base, there's no disc drive. They just increased the price of the controllers. In Japan and many other countries, they've increased the base price of the PS5, right? So I don't know if Sony's struggling, right? Or I don't know what's going on, but they are just like really like getting at people's wallets in just such a way that I just find unnecessary.
I think it's the opposite. I think what's happening now is Sony has become Apple. In the fact that like they want to offer like high end products, a medium one and a lower, like, you know what I mean? Like they want to give you people options like that, and they're gonna nickel and dime people left and right. That's what Apple does. Like Apple, here's the iPhone Max, here's the iPhone Pro, here's the iPhone regular. Then you have different gigabytes, and I think Sony is doing better than they've ever done. Like they're they're making tons of money. Like this is
right. That's what I like. I was saying maybe they're struggling like sarcastically. Like you know, I don't actually think they are. Yeah,
they're being greedy. They're
being greedy. No, I know. No, I think that's a great point. I mean, they're definitely acting a lot like Apple. I mean, hell, the PS5 kind of looks like an Apple device, really, if you squint at it. But I was watching the Digital Foundry video on this, which I recommend to people, and it's just like an 11-minute video on basically like, you know, how the price like stacks up and what they thought about it and stuff like that. And Apple did get brought up because it's like, you spend, I don't know, about like $1,500 for the high end newest iPhone 15 or whatever it is, 15 Pro. And I think you're right that Sony's doing something very similar with it. Kind of like looking at my PS5 right now, and I'm like, how much is that worth, really? Yeah, it's just 700 with no bass, no disk drive, and that's 700 in America, right? I mean, you look at that cost in other countries, it is beyond egregious.
Especially
I mean,
Canada.
in Canada, in Australia, it's 1,200 in Australia. In Japan, I think the yen is so bad right now, it's like 100 and something thousand yen. It's I'll say this hopefully the last time, but like I get that this is for enthusiasts, but it blows my mind that people are going to buy this, because I just think, and I am going to say what other people have been saying online, but I really feel like for that same price or similar price, you could get a really good gaming laptop for like 750, 800, and probably save some money, or look for really good deals around the holiday season. It's I think one thing in support of this, right, that I want to bring up, because I don't want to be completely negative, is that I was looking at the IGN video about it, that the 700 PS5 Pro is too much for too little, which I agree with. But the fun fact about the PS4 Pro is that, and this is according to Matt Piscatella, is that the PS4 Pro accounted for 13% of total lifetime PS4 units and about 15% of dollars. So the total PS4 unit volume trend did not change significantly when it was released, but average price went up. So they kind of succeeded at driving incremental sales to the super enthusiast, not base, and that's the not mass base. So I mean, that's the point of stuff like this, right? This isn't for the masses. This is not for me. This is not for somebody who just wants a PS5. This is for somebody who really wants to get every single pixel or frame out of their PS5 that they can get. And, I'm not saying there's something inherently wrong with that. It's just not my personal taste. It's not something that like super matters to me. It's not something I can see that really justifies $700 or so. Like if I did upgrade my PC, it would be to get better frames, like to be able to play like Wukong at like better performance, like have less stutter, have better like lighting, and have better like, so on and so forth. Like actual like things that I can measure and see and like experience. The stuff that they showed in the showcase, I can't say that any of it really, stood out to me. I mean, I was watching on my phone, so your mileage may vary, but like, I mean, I was looking real close at my phone to see like what is Mark talking about, because I cannot see any major difference. So I don't know.
Yeah. So I'll make it. I'll be clear from me personally. I have a 4080 PC, so I'm not going to buy this. I have no interest. I don't really touch my PS5 as much anymore. Like I'm more a PC gamer now.
Same.
And I've been playing Astro Bot, but I don't need a Pro for that. That game looks amazing. But if I was on PlayStation, if it was my main platform, I absolutely would buy this, because I am one of those 1% super tech enthusiasts that likes to have the best of the best product. And I would trade in my PS5 towards it, so I wouldn't even have to spend the whole $700. I would probably pay like, I don't know, $400.
It's like they did it on IGN. Sorry to interrupt. I just know the numbers off the top of my head.
You're good.
But it's like you trade it in. I think you get like, I think this is obviously just GameStop, right? Not other stores, but GameStop's offering, I think, like $350, and so you'd still have to pay another $350. And obviously for some super enthusiasts, for people who really, the 1%, like you said, that might be worth it. $350 is obviously a much more enticing price for this.
Not only that, if PlayStation was my main platform and it's something I'm going to use every single day and get the most out of it, I would rather have the best version. That's always my mindset. When I had a Series S, I couldn't stand it because I wanted a Series X, so I just got rid of it. I traded it back. I refunded it, got a Series X instead. I just can't. I personally just don't like something. I don't like settling. I'm not one of those FOMO people that's to buy everything new, new product because everything looks shiny and all that. But I just like to have. I need to have 60 frames, and I think that's really what it comes down to, is that on consoles you need I think the difference for the Pro and the regular PS5 is that hopefully I think you don't see it in the showcase itself, but like in the performance of the games, getting a consistent 60 frames across the board is a big difference for consoles. Like, because obviously not every game is 60 frames. Their first priority is, but that's like the big difference. I think it's not so much of the graphics that you're going to see the difference; it's the performance. And
I do think it's awesome that they. One of the only positive things I got out of it was like they're trying. I don't know how like stable this will be over the years, because I think eventually they'll have to bring back performance and quality mode just because they have to. Like, some people want that performance, some people want that quality. I actually think it's a good thing, but they're trying to get rid of it, or at least try to ease out of it, by having the PS5 Pro and like you said, stabilizing 60 FPS across all. And now I don't really notice stuff like that, and like that doesn't mean it's not important or it doesn't exist or whatever, etc., etc.
Yeah.
But so that is a cool thing that I'm glad that they're trying to just make it seamless across all devices. That way you don't have to pick and choose. I mean, I always pick performance. I think Mark Cerny said that like 70%, 80% of players pick performance, and that makes sense to me. I mean, why would you sacrifice FPS over a slightly nicer sunset, right? Obviously, I'm simplifying.
I agree
for the sake of
I like, obviously nowadays having a 4080 PC, I can do ultra settings and still get 100 something frames, but like in general, when PlayStation was my main platform, I always did performance mode because I think performance is more important than graphics. I'd rather lose some ray tracing and nice graphics for 60 frames, because it makes a huge difference. Like, your brain can't if you put a game on 60 frames and then switch to 30 midway, your brain can't handle it. Like, you just notice the difference. It's really bad. And performance is the only exception was like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, where like the performance mode was ugly, like horrendous in that game, absolutely horrendous. And I had to play in 30 frames because it was like the game looked beautiful. And that's where like PC, or like when that game comes to PC, playing in ultra settings and be able to get like 100 frames is gonna make a huge difference. So anyway, but the pricing is definitely bad. I'm not gonna defend the price. I don't like it, but I can understand it if I was thinking on the terms of, as a hardcore fan of a game of PlayStation, where I was like, you know what, PS5 is $500 and you're getting 2 terabytes. It costs about $150 to $200 to buy storage for your PS5. It kind of adds up around $700 plus. So you're basically getting like better specs and better hardware performance for like $50, $70 more. So from that standpoint, as a hardcore fan, I can understand the $700 price point. But I just think it's just it's not a good look in this current economy where there's inflation and people are struggling right now. But like, I don't think they give a shit. I don't think Apple gives a shit, because people are gonna buy it anyway, and it's just how it is. It's just
I mean, to be clear, like, this is gonna sell out. Like, this is like Digital Foundry was talking about it. Like, this is made. This is they're gonna make a small amount of numbers, and then it's gonna sell out really fast because there's enough enthusiasts out there. I mean, video games is a huge industry. And it'll sell out, and Sony will tout it, and they'll use it as justification for either higher prices or doing the same thing. Anyway, sorry, Seb. Just wanted to.
No, you're good. No, you're right. That's just gonna happen. Like, that's why I can't get outraged over these kind of things anymore, because like, the internet is not real life, and what people are gonna see the shiny new toy and buy it. It's just, like, people do the same thing with Call of Duty. They do the same with Pokemon. Like, everybody's boycotting and like, oh, we're not buying this. This is terrible. And then like, most people buy it anyway because either they're hypocrites and they have to have FOMO, or Twitter is just not real life. Like, Sony knows, oh, we've got a ton of backlash on Twitter, but who cares? Like, because we're gonna make money. Like, that's really what it comes down to. So I'm not defending it. I'm just saying like that. I can understand from a corporate standpoint. Like, oh yeah, the media is gonna get a little outraged, but people are still gonna buy it, so we're gonna do it anyway. That's how Nintendo operates. I mean, Nintendo makes every other game $60 full price, remasters from like 10 years ago, $60. Oh, they're gonna buy it anyway. Who gives a shit? So that's really what it comes down to, unfortunately. And I don't think enough people can boycott this and like not support it for Sony to change. Like, there's only exceptions of when Sony like does like 180s like Helldivers on Steam or something, because that impacts them like in a multiplayer space.
It's
But like in the hardware space, like they know we're the kings of this market. Nintendo obviously is winning the most and they're kicking everybody's ass, but I'm talking like that third party hardcore space with like the GTA 6 fan, people that want to play like 60 frames, Black Myth Wukong. You don't get that on Nintendo. That's what I'm talking about. That space, the hardcore third party space. There's only two companies competing against each other in the console space, and that's Nintendo. I mean, that's Sony and Microsoft. And Microsoft just, they're losing what 3-1, 5-1.
Yeah.
So
the only thing I can think of
they got a monopoly, basically a monopoly in the console space, in this specific market. I mean,
the only thing I can think of in terms of Sony like doing a hard U-turn is with the PS3, right? And Digital Foundry pointed this out, and I think IGN did too. Is that when that initial price came out, I think it was like $600 or something, there was a lot of backlash. And eventually, Sony, I think they reduced it by 100 or something like that. And people like backed off and cooled down. But that's an exception. That and Helldiver stuff. Those are exceptions that prove the rule. Largely, Sony doesn't give a shit, like you said, and they're not going to change. I certainly don't think there's going to be enough outrage here. Although I do think it's notable that even big channels like the IGN and Digital Foundry are saying that this is quite interesting case, or IGN just outright saying this is not worth it for most people. I think for certain people, for 1%, absolutely it'll be worth your time.
Yeah.
Because you have that money to spare and you want it for this particular purpose. But for me and most people like me, I just can't imagine. I would rather spend $700 in many other ways. I'd rather buy, I don't know, 700 Arizona teas, and I don't even drink Arizona tea. You know what I mean? So
yeah, I don't agree with the price. I think $600 would have been fine. It would have made sense, right? Because the baseline PS5 is $500, so get a stronger one for $100 more. That makes more sense to me than set $200 more. That like $200 is just too big of a jump for like most people. So this is a very hardcore focused like audience that they're trying to target, and like I said, they're Apple of the market. Maybe if Xbox was actually competing and their new Xbox, well, I know people are calling it the Xbox Series Y or whatever the hell it's called, and it was like $100 cheaper or something, and it was actually they were actually competing with PlayStation. Maybe like Sony would have to adjust; they wouldn't be able to do this. I don't know, but Sony's just dominating anyway. They're just the best they've ever done. Like they're making record profits, and it is what it is. So, me personally, I am glad that I've transitioned to PC. I don't have to deal with this because first of all, PlayStation has increased the sale of their price of PS Plus, so you have to pay online for like $80 a year, which is ridiculous, right? And then premium's like what $170 a year, and on PC I get it online for free. I don't have to buy online anymore. They're just nickel and diming their fans, and I think it's time to mass exodus from the console space if you can. But I know a lot of people prefer having a console because you just plug and play. So I gotta although I want to say one thing for sure is I keep seeing this on Twitter and stuff. I would not recommend buying a PC for $700. I know people are making argument. Oh, you go to the scavenger hunt, you can get parts and used parts, and you can build this and this and this. I'm like, I really would not recommend getting a PC for that price. I really would not. I would save up. I would spend at least $1,000. Save up a little more. If you have $700 to spend, maybe save up a couple more, $300. Then start looking around. I just would not settle for that because there's elements of this Pro that's going to be better than the PCs that people are proposing. I know those PC gamers are going to totally disagree with me, but I don't believe in settling. If you're really going to invest in the PC ecosystem, I would definitely just save a little more money and really have more of a future-proof system. Don't just settle. Oh, this is on sale for $7. I'm just going to get that one. No, I really recommend you kind of just look at this. Black Friday is around the corner. Save up a little more money, and then invest it into PC. Because I people are like, because the thing is, console gamers are a lot more casual audience, right? They like plug and play. They're not gonna go build a PC. Like I mean, this is console gamers complain about the PS5 having a stand that you had to screw in, right? They couldn't even handle that. You asking them to build a whole ass PC. It ain't gonna happen. So
Yeah.
you're this PC gamers on Twitter. I mean, I'm a PC gamer myself, but like the victory laps, they're running around circles, like recommending building a PC to these casual gamers. It ain't gonna happen. So why you're just wasting your time with that. They're not gonna go scavenger hunts and go on PC websites and buy parts and build a PC. It's just not gonna happen. So what I would recommend is just me personally is if you're serious about getting away from the console space, maybe sell your console, get some, and then save up some money. And I would spend at least $1,000 for a PC, even if it's a gaming laptop. You get a very beautiful gaming laptop from like $1,000 to $1,200. I have a 4070 gaming laptop. I got it for like $1,200 on sale, and that was during the summer. So imagine like Black Friday, right? So you can find something maybe for 900 or something, but I would just not settle for a $700 PC.
Yeah.
So I don't agree with people saying that.
Yeah, I understand where people are coming from. I do think you can get, without scavenger hunts, I think you can get a decent super budget for like 750, 800, maybe 900.
Yeah, you can.
You can, but it's difficult, and it's like you said, a lot of these people are casual gamers, and they don't, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah,
but there's I feel like the Seinfeld episode, but there's nothing wrong with that. But it just means that they have different priorities, and like you said, I mean, it's so funny, and it's true. They're complaining about not having a goddamn stand, and you think that they're going to put together a whole like a PC? Like, no, that ain't. Yeah, not going to happen.
It's two different audiences. This is two different audiences.
Yeah, it's different audiences. I don't even use my fucking stand. I never cared about that. It never bothered me. It just looks like Seto Kaiba's having a bad day, and he just needs to take a nap. Like I don't give a shit. Like, it doesn't matter to me. And I don't care about the disk drive either. So like the two main problems with the PS5 Pro, or two of the main problems that the PS5 Pro has, I don't even care about. But I just think it's such a bad deal for people who do care about those things, disk drives and stuff like that. And obviously you can get into the digital preservation, physical preservation conversation that happens every goddamn week on Twitter about whether this is good or bad for preservation and you actually owning your games as opposed to gaming companies owning your games and stuff. Yeah, what were you gonna say, Seb?
No, I agree, but like at the end of the day, I know console gamers are a different audience than PC gamers. But if you're this obsessed with like getting the best of the best, and want to spend $700, I would just, like I said, save up your money and spend like $1,000 on a nice PC. Like if you're really that obsessed with like having the best like resolution and everything, then you just get into PC gaming. I don't.
Yeah.
Like I understand people want 60 frames on console. Like that should have been like the minimum guarantee for this generation, and it sucks that like it's ridiculous to me that games like Redfall or like Starfield are like 30 frames in 2024 when you have the world's strongest console, right? Because the Series X is stronger than the PS5. So I understand people's mindset. Like we want to have like 60 frames, great performance on consoles, and we're console guys, and we want to have that. But like if you're willing to spend $700 on a console, and you want to have the best of the best, why not just save up more money and get a PC? If you're that obsessed, like, because you could plug in your PC into your TV, or
I did that with another Crab's Treasure, and it ran pretty well, and it was really fun to just plug it in my TV and not have to sit necessarily here, and I could look at a bigger screen. I've only done that like once or twice because my laptop's pretty big. I mean, for me anyway, it's like a 16-incher or 20-incher or something, or maybe bigger. I don't remember. But yeah, it's pretty decently sized, so I don't usually need to look at my TV. But yeah, and there's tons of options here. I just hope people like think about their options, and if you are a console gamer, honestly, I would just stick with the PS5 unless you really, like Seb said, you're really obsessed. You want the best of the best. Obviously, go for the Pro. Glob be with you. You know, go have fun. But I just think the pricing's a mistake. The not including the disc drive and not including at least have a disc drive version that's more expensive and a digital that's the 600. You know, if you're really going to do this, I know Sony doesn't, care, and they're just whatever about it. They're profiteering, but
yeah,
it is frustrating from a consumer standpoint. Even as somebody who I barely have touched my PS5 all year, I think I played a handful of games this year. I think I played Final Fantasy, Stellar Blade, Nobody Wants to Die. And that was it. Most of my top 10, most of my GOTYs, I played on my PC. Even the really high up ones. Actually, yeah, and I think did I play? I don't remember about Infinite Wealth. I think I played that on PlayStation as well. But yeah, it's just like it's not a space that I inhabit at this point, and it's something I'm even looking to get further away from because I'm considering getting a 30 or something or 40.
It's hard to go back considering like when I played Black Myth Wukong, I got ultra settings and I was getting like 100 something frames for most of the game, and like I can't even tell you the difference. Like I wish I could show you what I saw. Like my experience was different than yours, right? A lot different. And I couldn't. And I know the PS5 version's a complete mess. So like I couldn't imagine going back anymore. It's hard for me to process like going back to consoles. Like Astro Bot is an exception because it's a first party game and it's optimized and everything. But like in general though, I can't imagine playing consoles anymore. It's cheaper. I get games for like $53 now if I want to get full price. You know what I mean? Like CD keys and stuff. So almost every indie game when it's on Steam, when it first comes out, when you can pre-order it, you can always get it for like $3 cheaper, $5 cheaper. There's always a sale before the game even comes out. So I just prefer PC. But if I overall, just to wrap up this topic now, I would get it if I was a PlayStation only gamer like I was in the past because I like having the best. But I'm one of those rare 1%. If I was recommending it to a general audience, I would not recommend it. And I think Sony did a poor job really advertising this Pro. I just think they allowed the negativity to overshadow the whole announcement. Why? Because had they like did an actual showcase and showed like new games and showed the power of the Pro, then maybe people can be like, oh, okay, well, $700 is a lot, but if it looks like this, maybe I'll consider it. You know what I mean? Like, wow, Wolverine is like 60 frames and it looks incredible, and like my PS5 can't do that. Like that, and I can understand, right? But showing old games, like especially like Last of Us Part 2, which came out 4 years ago, like that's not really gonna move any needles.
And The Last of Us Part 2 always looked stunning. I'm not gonna hear some fucking fake retrospective about how The Last of Us 2 needs upgraded graphics. Like, shut the fuck up. Like, it's always looked like an amazing game. You can have problems with the story and various things, but that game has always looked incredible. I'm not saying it was perfect, but it looked stunning then, and it looks great now. I mean, I was looking at my phone screen, so your mileage may vary, but I mean, it looked really good in both of them. And me personally, it doesn't do much, but you know, I agree with Seb. If you're like one of the 1%, obviously this is for you. Yeah. General audience, stay away from this. This is cash grabbing at its worst from Sony. I honestly just think this is silliness.
Yeah.
If it had been at 600, I think that would have been more reasonable. I think you could have also split it up, had a disc drive for 700 and a digital for 600. I mean, it's so clear at this point that Sony's moving away from physical media. If it wasn't already obvious,
if not everybody,
by them having, it's happening to everybody. But I mean, it's happening more and more to the gaming space too. I mean, I'm all digital. I never buy physical stuff anymore. And obviously there are upsides and downsides to that, but that's a separate conversation. But yeah,
right.
We should do something else now. We talked about this for a while.
Yeah. So that's our news topics. That was the PS5 Pro was the big news. So I knew that was going to be the longest topic of the night.
Yeah.
So now let's talk about what we're playing. Dory will go first because Astro Bot's going to be the main focus of this episode, as you can see by the thumbnail. So Dory, you beat Dragon Age 2 and you beat Stellar Blade. So I maybe start with Stellar Blade just because you play that. Just get that because you in Dragon Age it was the game you've been playing recently. So let's do Stellar Blade first.
Yeah. Sure. So last time I was talking about Stellar Blade, I was almost towards the end of the game. It took me, I want to say, around 20 hours to beat, and I did almost everything in the game. I feel like I did almost everything. There are a couple of quests here and there that I didn't do, either because they were fetch quests or because I personally didn't jive with it or whatever. But it took me about like 19, 20 hours to beat the whole game. That's not doing New Game Plus. I almost never do New Game Plus unless, I'm a real sicko for the game, which is not this game. The stuff I really want to talk about is the late game, obviously, because that's really what I played. The late game kind of sucks. I'm going to be real. I did not care for a lot of the late game. I'll go like kind of. I wrote some notes for this just to make sure I'm at my best for this, but basically, the TLDW is that it has a brutal difficulty curve spike on multiple bosses. One of the worst design puzzles I've ever seen in my life, and it's just a very unsatisfying ending. And I won't do any spoilers, so don't worry about spoilers because this game came out this year, so I'm not going to go into detail, but I'll just talk briefly. So yeah, just to kind of set the scene here, it's number 10 on my GOTY list, but it'll likely get moved to honorable mentions before the year is up. I mean, you have Veilguard coming out, you have Double Exposure, obviously you have Visions of Mana, there's a couple other games that are coming out in October too, like Sparking Zero. There's plenty of other games that could supplant it easily. So the difficulty curve stuff, right? I understand this is a hack and slash mixed with some Souls elements, so I'm not mad about the game being difficult inherently, right? The game always had a bit of an edge to it, so to speak, and it always had some difficulty. But bosses go from just having a few attacks here and there, and it feels really nicely paced out. Every now and then I could get frustrated at a boss, but for the most part, I felt like it was fair. And even when I got frustrated, I didn't feel like the fight was unfair. I just felt like I messed up, or the boss did something I didn't expect. How could I have been prepared for that? Blah, blah, blah. But eventually it gets kind of ridiculous. The last three bosses in particular just have a lot of attacks. They especially have one-hit kills that it's poorly explained by the game what you're supposed to do. It took me multiple tries on one of the bosses to figure out what the hell I was supposed to do. Now, it is intuitive once you realize, but the game doesn't really explain. It does say, you're supposed to shoot this part of the boss to stop them from charging up. Yeah, it's a classic boss technique, or a classic trope in gaming. So whatever, but it did feel the part of it that really sucks is that they'll do standard attacks at you while you're trying to shoot it out. So you'll have to dodge and then start shooting again. It's just kind of annoying. But generally it feels like the hack and slash game goes away to become more Souls-like. And I don't necessarily dislike that. I loved Another Crab's Treasure, and I loved Flintlock. So that's not necessarily a bad thing to me at this point. I'm brave enough to admit that. Thank you. But it felt a little unbalanced. And relative to all the bosses that came before them, some of the bosses just felt egregious, especially the final boss. I'll talk about that in a second. There's a puzzle in the late game that I want to talk about that literally I was doing it right before I was going to go to work, and it made me late for work. I was so frustrated I couldn't figure it out. But basically it's one of those little pipe games where you have to fill up a meter and get it to the other side of the board. And there's a very fast timer, and you need to interact with a computer and guide a blue and orange circuit to the end. Now, the game doesn't really explain how this is controlled. They don't even say that there's a timer, so you don't even know that until it says you failed within I don't know, it must be 20 seconds, maybe 30. Or that you need to alternate. I think what the game wants you to do, I'm not even sure, is I think you're supposed to do both analog, because one analog stick controls the blue and another one controls the orange. And I think you're supposed to do it simultaneously, or at least very quickly after each other. And as you know, Seb, and as many of our listeners know, I am not very good with hand-eye coordination. So this was incredibly frustrating. And again, that wasn't even the biggest issue. The biggest issue is the timer is so quick. You need to basically be perfect and know exactly what you're doing. And looking up a guide helps, but because the timer is so fast, you can't be looking at your phone and then looking back up and trying to copy the movements, right? That doesn't work. Unlike Spider-Man, there's no skip puzzle game. There's no, I looked for it. There's no accessibility options either. It is just frustrating. I hated it. It's not a big deal, but it did really, in the moment, I was pissed. And probably just wish there had been a skip button, but there wasn't. Kind of last thing I'll talk about is the ending. I thought the ending kind of sucked. It's basically sequel baiting. Even if you got the true ending is a sequel bait. So basically you put in all that effort, and the game never bothers to explain to you how to get the true ending to begin with, by the way. And so you get the true ending, do a bunch of extra work for one of your companions to get that ending in the first place, and you basically get like a nothing ending. Not a nothing ending. Like there are some plots resolved, but it's clear that they're setting up for another game. And like sequel baiting isn't inherently bad, but it's often pretty bad because it just doesn't feel resolved, right? Like when Mass Effect 1 and Mass Effect 2 happened, and both of those endings feel really good, like because it gets you pumped, right? I think another example is like Halo 2. I think when it ends, a lot of people were frustrated with that because it's like it's I don't remember exactly how Halo 2 ends, but like basically like the Covenant or another Halo is revealed or something like that, and it's like cool. I can't wait to there's the credits. So that's the problem often with sequel baiting. It just feels kind of incomplete. The last boss sucks. If you do the true ending, if you don't do the true ending, I have no idea. I have no idea. But you do such little damage to this boss, and it just absolutely knocks your block off easily in like 1 or 2 hits. It's just really frustrating. Again, I don't mind if the game borders more into Souls territory inherently. I just feel like they could have built up to that a little better. You get a suit for doing the true ending. It looks really cool. I guess I'm going to be controversial here, but then you realize that like Eve's boobs are just like hanging out, like not totally hanging out, but like really out there for no particular reason. It's not really supposed to be like I get that the game's trying to do this like badass sexy thing for Eve, and I do think there are suits that works for. Like there's the keyhole suit, the cybernetic dress, the daily force suit. I think those are really fashionable, and it shows like Eve's a badass. But like it's just like there's a cutscene when you win, and your companion comes up to you to give you a hug, and she's like shorter than you, so like her head just goes right up to your boobs, and it just like takes you out of the moment, you know what I mean? So like I don't know, I don't think I'm being prudish here, but the suit's really cool. Apart from that, it kind of reminds me of Sephiroth actually. It's got a lot of white, there's some wings and stuff, it's really cool. But then yeah, you see the front, and like again, I don't have an inherent issue with like sexual suits or whatever. I just don't think this works. Yeah, eventually with the final boss, I had to do this kind of knockdown strategy where I had to constantly like do these special moves, these beta skills basically that would knock it on its feet, and then attack it a few more times, build up that beta speed really fast through some mods and stuff. Not mods, but like modifiers for Eve, not mods for the game. It's kind of a cheese strat, but like because you do such little damage and the boss does such big boy damage, it doesn't really feel like you're cheesing it because any 1 or 2 attacks is going to kill you. Like the boss has some really quick one-hit KOs. So yeah, I don't know. Overall, I still recommend the game. I do think it's a great game overall. It's really fun throughout the beginning and the middle. I just think it stagnates at the end with a really frustrating finale that just has like outrageous puzzles, or at least the one puzzle. And some boss fights that feel like a difficulty spike. It feels kind of like a dragon. It feels like a dragon. It feels like LAD, where you have Ichiban and you've been doing really well, and then all of a sudden towards the end, and I know this is an RPG stable, so why not bring it to hack and slash games too? But yeah, it was frustrating for me. If you have high hopes for kind of a proper conclusion and really satisfying fights, personally, I don't think you'll get that from Stellar Blade. Still think it's a great game. It's a beautiful game. The soundtrack rips. I actually listened to certain songs the other day. I especially really love the Oasis song. And there's just some really good like songs in it. I'm very surprised by how good the soundtrack is, because it's not really an RPG, right? But I don't know, Japan just kicks ass when it comes to music. What can I say? So yeah, Shift Up did an amazing job of the soundtrack, the graphics. I think the gameplay itself is generally pretty good, if not great. But watch out for that final stretch. So that's me about Stellar Blade. I'll talk about Dragon Age unless you had anything you wanted to say, Seb.
No, I had nothing to add because I haven't played it yet. I will play it, and I'll then we can have a deeper conversation about it. But I have heard about mixed things about the ending. I've heard people say they don't really like the ending and it's sequel baited. So your opinion lines up with the general consensus. From
I didn't even know that, so that's pretty funny. I didn't even know that.
Yeah. And it was tedious to get the ending, I believe, right?
It wasn't. I wouldn't call it fun. No. You have to you have to get someone's approval up, and you have to do specific side quests and specific items to do that. I wouldn't say it was terrible, but but certainly the fight itself, I stayed up really late just to beat the final boss.
I said tedious. Is it tedious? Because I said tedious. Like
to get the true ending. I think they integrated it decently. Once you know what you're supposed to do, I don't think it's that out of the norm for you to do. It's mostly just a lot of side quests that reveal lore about the world and certain like files and stuff that you can buy from merchants. I don't think it's. I think it could have been better. I think they could have explained it better, but I don't think it's like it's terrible.
I've heard I've heard the open world is not the best. Like it's fine, but it's not like.
My biggest problem with the open world is just that I talked about it last time, and it's still true. Those fucking enemies follow you like you stole their lunch money. It's ridiculous how far they follow you, and it makes interacting with the environment impossible to do. You just can't do anything as long as you're in combat.
That was my opinion of Atomic Heart. I was like, oh my god, can you just leave me alone for 5 seconds? Like, let me breathe. Yeah.
Yep. So.
All right. So, Dragon Age 2. You finished Dragon Age 2. So you've officially finished Dragon Age Origins and 2. So now Inquisition is your next game, I would think, right? Or we're gonna
there's some DLC, but it's pretty quick. I'll have it done in a day or two.
So are you gonna play Inquisition before the new one comes out, or?
Yes, I am going to do my damnedest to beat Inquisition. I know it's a much bigger game than Dragon Age 2. I know that. So I don't know if that's going to happen. Obviously, October is also slammed. So
yeah,
obviously when Sparking Zero comes out or Double Exposure or whatever, I will be like putting Inquisition down to play those games. So I don't know. It's kind of a toss up. I still have half of September until the craziness of October happens. So
yeah,
I could at least make decent progress. I will say I know enough about Dragon Age at this point to understand what's happening in Veilguard. Like when IGN just released a 15-minute or like a IGN first preview for it, pretty much everything they were talking about, I understood. Like I knew what that word meant. I knew what that race or species was. I knew what their deal was. So like, I feel like I'm not going to be like out of the loop. I'm sure like there's some stuff I won't understand because obviously I haven't played. Maybe will not have finished Inquisition. But yeah, I don't know. It just depends on how many side quests I do. I've heard that there's a lot of criticisms of that Inquisition makes things feel like a checklist. That old open world checklist.
That's my biggest problem with it. That's why it wasn't my game of the year. It won game of the year that year, but it wasn't my game of the year because even though it was a good game, it had too much checklist stuff. Like
that's fair.
The good news for Veilguard is that Veilguard, from what I was watching the IGN preview this week, they said that they got rid of that because that was a big criticism of it, and they streamlined it a lot more. It's more linear. More set quests are more linear.
The whole idea, I think, is to combine what people liked about Dragon Age 2 with what people liked about Inquisition. And so I think that's what they're trying to do. I don't know if it'll work out, but the IGN reviewers seem very positive about it.
Yeah.
So I'm more hopeful than I was before.
That IGN preview got me more hyped for it, and I might be day one now. Like I was on the fence, but I think I'm thinking I'm more day one. I think
the top comment was like, this IGN preview has gotten me more hyped than any marketing BioWare has done themselves.
Because you know what?
And I was like, that's really true.
Yeah, because like I like the action focused gameplay, and I love a dialogue wheel, or like I just love like having a Western RPG where I can talk to characters and the whole role playing element. I love fantasy. I'm getting Baldur's Gate vibes. It won't be as good as Baldur's Gate, but I'm still getting like that itch, scratch that itch kind of thing. So unless the game gets 70s or something on Metacritic, which I'll be shocked. I feel like it's gonna be in the 80s. I'm leaning that way. I'm day one probably. So
Yeah,
But
I'm hoping 80s, and if I'm feeling really adventurous, 90s, but I doubt it'll get 90s. I would
yeah,
love for it to do that, but I think BioWare is unfortunately past its prime.
yeah,
But speaking of past its prime, I'll talk about Dragon Age 2. Dragon Age 2, just want to start off with the positives. Great game overall, 4 out of 5 for me. Definitely a great game. Not like a weak like 4 out of 5 like Starfield. Like this is definitely a great game. Has terrific writing. I mean, this is BioWare, and BioWare is still in its prime, I would think. The VO is excellent. The characters are well written. The main villains are awesome. I loved Meryl. I mean, literally, I loved Meryl. She was my partner throughout most of the game, most of Act 2 and all of Act 3. Anders was awesome. He's such a great character. I think he's really compelling. I think the Mage Templar thing is so good, and the way it's written is so nuanced, and has a lot of parallels, obviously, to our modern world and how people deal with minorities and stuff like that. I mean, that goes back to X-Men, and how mages are treated in a lot of fantasy stuff. Aveline was also great. I didn't agree with her and everything, but I often saw where she was coming from. Aveline was the captain of the guard. She was the warrior. She was the other warrior besides Fenris, who I hated and never had in my party. He was an asshole. I did sympathize with him because of his backstory, but I did not like him. And of course, Varric. I don't need to say much about Varric. Varric's awesome. He's a wise Alec, drinking, dwarven man who's just very, very suave and just fun to be around. I didn't have him in my party a ton because I was also a rogue. I always play rogue. But yeah. I think combat was a step down from Origins. I don't think that's controversial, but it was still really great. I still had a really good time with it. I don't really think, every now and then there were battles like, oh, why do I have to fight these enemies? But that wasn't because like the combat system itself. That was because the game just gives you too many enemies to fight sometimes, but I'll get to that later. Music was obviously fantastic. I mean, it's a fantasy realm. It's kind of a layup for BioWare. There are some character cameos from Origins and from the DLC. I already mentioned Anders, but there are other characters too. I thought they were done really tastefully and really well. The romance system is better. It's more like Baldur's Gate 3. It's more about approval and making decisions that your teammates feel good about than about gifts, which has always felt gross to a lot of people. Makes relationships feel really transactional, that you can just buy sex out of people, and it's just kind of weird. It's just not good. And I'm glad that they moved away from that in Dragon Age 2. Makes the romance system feel a lot more earned. When I finally was able to date Meryl, I felt a lot more... I was able to actually like kind of celebrate that win because I really like Meryl. I think she's an awesome character. She's very autistic coded. And so obviously that's one of the reasons I gravitated towards her. Some of the side quests are really well done. There's a whole arc with like a mine that's infested by dragons, and it culminates in a really epic fight. The Mage Templar quests I've already talked about, and of course the companion quests. That's most of the positives. I'm not going to be breaking any ground here by the negatives I talk about, but the first one I have to talk about is reused environments. Good Lord. Just there are, and I know like it's not necessarily completely BioWare's fault. I think that they were probably pressured to put out a new game in 2 years or some shit, just like they were with KOTOR. But unlike with KOTOR 2, they didn't like say no or quit or what or hand it off to Raven, right? They did it, and it's impressive for how little time they had. I think it was 2 or 3 years, but it's a lot of reused environments. I mean, after it finishes and you're done with the Dark Road, you realize, oh, I'm not going anywhere besides Kirkwall. Like, you just don't see anything besides Kirkwall and a couple of outside areas every now and then. It with recycled dungeons, no less. So it just feels bad. It kind of reminds me of Starfield, honestly, in a way, where it just feels like just things are recycled over and over again, and it's trying to make it feel unique by giving you different missions, but that's not enough. So yeah, it's not a deal breaker for me as a gamer, because like I understand it, and I also know like the behind the scenes stuff, so it doesn't bother me a ton, but it's there and you can't ignore it. It's right in front of you. So yeah, it's a frustrating part, even if I understand why. I will say Act 3 has really cheap combat design. It's just wave based, and it's not as dynamic as Origins, and it feels cheap. Like I already said, it's just like, especially when, and this is a pet peeve of mine, I guess. But when you kill a leader of a group, right, you would think that all of their minions would either run away, or at least after that wave, the battle would be done. But in Dragon Age 2, it just keeps going no matter what. And that just makes it feel really like rehearsed. Obviously, it's a game, right? So to some extent, it is rehearsed. But like, it's just frustrating to it's just frustrating to like kill the leader and then fight like 2 more waves right after that. So that was frustrating to me, and also led to some deaths that were just totally unnecessary because I had already killed the leader. The combat is streamlined, which is nice, but so is equipping your party. Like, I never upgraded any of my party's armor, and you can't. You can't give them new armor at all. Any of the armor that's for mages or for warriors or whatever else, that if it's not for a rogue or it's not general use, it doesn't work on my character, and that really sucks. Or I have to just sell it. So that was, you can't outfit your party members, which is frustrating. So that just makes for less originality and equipment for your party, less customization options, yada yada. Basically, the CRPG roots are moved away from via Origins, and it kind of has a like clunky, very thick, bold-looking UI that I just think looks gross. I don't really want to interact with it. It doesn't look good. I don't know what the designers were thinking with it. I'm not saying it's like unintuitive. I understand how it works. I just don't like looking at it. This one's kind of personal, but I feel like the amount of tragedy that Hawk has to go through, Hawk's your character in Dragon Age 2, for those who don't know, just feels unnecessary. You lose a family member at the beginning, and then in Act 2, Act 1, you can lose a family member if you make the wrong choice, which I did. And then towards the end, you lose another one. It just feels a bit much. I don't know. I know that like one of them was my fault for taking that character with me, but yeah, I don't know. It was just frustrating for me because it's like, okay, like she's already lost all these people. Like, do we need to keep? It felt very Games of Thrones to me, like very. The darkness and grittiness of Origins felt very natural to me, and it's very frank discussion of things like slavery and just like sexual violence, like lots of stuff that felt very organic. Here it feels like we're forcing a little bit of darkness into the game just to be dark. So anyway, that's my perspective on that. But yeah, it's a great game. But it's hard not to see it in the shadow of what came before. Dragon Age 2 would have been better if it was the original and Origins was a sequel. Flip the plot around, I guess. It's just, I get why everybody says Dragon Age 2 is like the black sheep, because it just doesn't stand up to Origins at all. I know BioWare wanted to attract more people. It wanted to streamline the UI, wanted to streamline the combat. And some of that stuff is helpful, and I do appreciate it. Like, I feel like potions were easier to use, and like certain aspects of the game felt better. And I felt like I was doing inventory management less often. So that was nice. That was one of my few criticisms of Origins. But they kind of threw out the baby with the bathwater kind of situation, where they just lost a bit of the soul of what made Origins. And that's just kind of sad to me. I know they were trying to make it more mainstream and attract more customers, and so they could do another game, and obviously they did. So I guess success. But for me, that came at the cost of like what made Origins truly special, which is like one of the best CRPGs to me. So yeah, that's my opinion on Dragon Age 2. I've been talking forever, so I'll let you talk about either Dragon Age 2 or Astro Bot.
All right. That's Dragon Age 2. I don't have anything to add because I really don't remember the game very well. It's been a long time since I played it, but I know it's the worst one. It's considered the worst one by the fan base, I think. I think Origins and Inquisition are the best too, from what I hear. Hopefully Veilguard is amazing as well. But Astro Bot. Speaking of greatness, Astro Bot is my game of the year. by no surprise. It is that good of a game. I would not be shocked if this game wins Game of the Year at the Keighley's, the Video Game Awards. Like, I really think this game has a strong chance of winning the Game of the Year. Why? Because it's universally loved. Why is it so universally loved? Because this is a video game, first and foremost. Like, this is a true video game. What I mean by that is that it's just pure fun. It has a lot of heart. Like, it's for everybody. I don't care what age you are. You're gonna have a good time with this game. Like, it is pure fun. It is gameplay focused. It has amazing level designs, an amazing soundtrack, lovable characters. The Astro Bots are so likable. It has awesome boss fights. It's almost insane how many levels this game has and how different they feel. I mean, there's the same mechanics, the same enemy type variety, and that's a valid criticism. But you don't feel it because they change it up so much. Like, every level just feels so unique. It's insane. It's like 80 something levels. Now, not all the levels are like 20 minutes long or anything like that, so it sounds like like it's too much, but it really isn't. It really is an amazing game. It is a perfect game. I mean, it's not literally perfect. I have some criticisms of it. So if I was like rating it out of a 10, it'd be like a 9.8, 9.7 or something. But like if I'm doing a 5 out of 5, it's a 5 out of 5. So where do I start? So first things first, the game starts with Astrobots flying through space. They're in a PS5 spaceship, and they get attacked by an alien. And he basically tears up the ship, and all the Astrobots get scattered around the galaxy, or they're around space, and into different galaxies, and you have to go rescue them all. There's 300 of them. I have like 290. I'm almost done. I'll have the platinum by tonight. They're scattered through each level. There's like usually like 5 to 7 in each level. You have to find them. They're pretty well hidden. Some are very obvious, and others are like really well designed. Like this game has an awesome level design. Like, there's legitimately you need to look everywhere around you. Because there's puzzle pieces to collect, and then there's the bots to collect. So the puzzle pieces unlock like in the main hub. So you basically how it works is you're in a world map, like a galaxy space map, and you have a main hub in the middle. That's where the spaceship crash landed, and you land there, and that's where like the hangout spot is, like where all the Astrobots you collected hang out, and that's the puzzle pieces you get unlock certain centers in that main hub. So that's where you unlock like the gotcha machine, the what do you call it, the pachinko machine thing, whatever it's called, and I think it's a gotcha machine or something like that. Then that's where you unlock the costumes. That's where you unlock like the safari zone or whatever, and that so it's important to collect the pieces to the puzzle first, also for the platinum, because pretty much everybody that plays the game is not just beating this game; they're getting the platinum. It's like everybody's going after the platinum. Even people that don't trophy hunt is getting the platinum, because this is the kind of game where you can't put down. It's like it's almost disappointing how that it's short, because like I could play this game for 50 hours. Like, it's that good. Don't get me wrong; I have no issues with the length. I don't equate value with the length of a game. Now, I'm not going to buy a game for $60 that's an hour long, but I've played plenty of games where I've beat it in 8 hours and was fine paying full price for it, like Uncharted, for example. So it doesn't bother me that I beat this game in 10 hours. But I would have liked if this game was long, just because I love it so much. That's what I'm saying. So the length doesn't bother me, but I just wish it was long, because it was so much fun. Like, pretty much every opinion I've seen of this game has said the same thing. Like, oh, wish I was sad when it ended. It was like I was having so much fun, and then now that's it. But fortunately, they've confirmed in interviews. I think I watched Min-Max and Skill Up, and they said there's gonna be DLC at the end of the year. So that's awesome. So you have all these levels. Usually about 4 to 5 levels, I want to say, each galaxy, and then there's a boss fight level. The boss fight levels are all very unique from each other, different mechanics. Each level has like an ability that you unlock. You hit the chest and you get an ability. So one's like a dash with a dog that goes on your back. You have the monkey one where you can fling things and climb on walls. It's like the Astro Bot game from the PS5 demo, just extended. And then there's a bunch of other smaller, challenging levels around the galaxy on the map, that you would unlock just by flying around the map and crashing into the comet and stuff. This game overall is easy. It's a family game. It's a platformer. You're gonna die a lot, but the checkpoints are very, very accessible. They're always in the right spot. So, and the SSD of the PS5 is really well done in this game. Like, loading screens are instant, so when you die, you basically pop right back up. So it's really not that bad. The main levels are very easy. Like, they're very easy. But the challenges though, the challenging levels are like very hard, or hard, I would say. I wouldn't say they're like impossible. They're not Mario Sunshine hard. There's like a couple of them that are like genuinely you're gonna have some issues with. And I really wish they had a checkpoint system in those levels, because if you die at any point in those, you make one mistake, you have to start the whole thing over again. And like I said, the speed of the SSD and all that is no issue, and it's great. So like you come right back and everything, but there's gonna be a couple levels, especially the rubber duck one, that's like notorious, what everybody's struggling with, where you have to like use the rubber duck to splash the lava and then throw it at the frog, and people didn't know you could throw the duck at the frog, and that's the one that's been struggling. But even the hardest ones, where it's been a little frustrating, only took me like 10 minutes, so it's nothing like an hour or 2 hours long difficulty, but it's definitely challenging. Like if you're not good at coordination and like platforming, you're gonna have a hard time with the challenges. I mean, they're optional, but if you want the platinum, you have to do it. Like I said, they're not that bad, I think. I'm not saying I'm some expert platforming. I've been playing platformers my whole life, but I'm not gonna act like I can do a world record of Mario or something. Like I'm a normal gamer in that regard. So, but you do. It's not gonna be. It's the challenge is, if you're not really good with that kind of stuff, you're gonna have a hard time. But overall, the game is easy. It's a family game. All right. What else? So that's that, and that's that. The soundtrack. Okay, no, actually no. The level design as well. There's specific levels that play tribute to certain PlayStation IPs. There's a God of War level. Just and you literally you play as Kratos, like an Astro Bot Kratos, and you get to throw the axe, the Leviathan axe. There's a Horizon level where you're Aloy, and you shoot arrows, and you actually, like, when you jump up in the air and shoot, it freezes time, and the whole mechanic of the level is like freezing time, like, you know, like in Horizon. There's an Ape Escape level where you have to capture the ape bots. There is a what was it, Loco Roco, what else called? That one where you have to roll around. Forget the name of it, and there might be another one I'm forgetting, but Uncharted. There's an Uncharted level where you play as Nathan Drake and bot, and you shoot the enemies with a gun. And when I tell you the remixes of the themes of the main theme songs of Horizon, Uncharted, God of War, the remix, the techno remix or the electronic remix of those themes kick ass. Like, those are like, we're talking like best soundtrack of the year, possibly. That good. Those themes kick ass. I love. Like, that's like something I'm gonna put on my Spotify playlist. Like, that is that good. Like, especially the Uncharted one. The Uncharted theme is iconic, but like whole on like electronic remix of it. It really, it plays throughout the whole level, and you just feel like a badass, even though you're this bot with a gun. It's really cool. I really loved all the different levels. I loved Kratos Astrobot. Like, that was awesome, and I love like the levels are. Like, they're tributes to the actual games, and the bots you collect are characters from the games and stuff like that. But also, not just that, but like, there's a lot of awesome tributes to the Astrobots. Like, I mean, to gaming on PlayStation over the last 30 years. Like, there's like obscure PS1 games from like Japan only bots. There are third-party ones like Resident Evil in this game. There are Devil May Cry, Metal Gear Solid, pretty much any big third-party one you could think of. The only exception, I believe, there's no Final Fantasy in this, so that's kind of disappointing. There's no Cloud or anything, but there's DLC coming out, and maybe we'll get more. But that I think that's more of a Square Enix issue, probably. So that was a little disappointing, but I recognize like maybe 80%, because I'm a hardcore. I've been playing PlayStation since 1995, basically. So I recognize, like, I want to say 80% of it I'm not gonna act like I knew every reference, but I played pretty much the majority of the games that they reference and the bots. I'm not saying every level is a tribute to PlayStation, but the collection of the bots. Usually how it works is like if you're in a horror like graveyard Luigi's Mansion kind of level, they put horror characters in there. So like you get like Sir Daniel from Medieval, or you get like Jill or Chris Redfield. So like things like that. What else? Yeah, so I hit the soundtrack, the gameplay, the level design. Oh, so in the main hub area, it kind of plays like Pikmin, where like all the Astrobots you collect follow you around. Like all 300 of them just follow you, and you basically command them to pick up something. So it will say like, oh, you need 50 Astrobots to do this. So you go over there, try to pick it up, and all 50 of them go to you, and they pick it up with you. So it turns into like Pikmin. As the more you collect, the more you unlock extra bots around the area and secrets and things like that. So that was really awesome too. They didn't have to do that. And I love the finale of like all the Astrobots coming together, flying on like PSPs, the PSVR, the PS1, the PS2, and it plays the sound effect when it flew by, and like it's a true tribute to PlayStation. Like if you love PlayStation, it's a must play, of course. But this game as a whole is just it is one of the greatest platformers of all time. I think it's the greatest PlayStation platformer of all time. And I don't say that lightly because there's some great ones, but this is the best PlayStation platformer of all time. And I would say it's the top 5 3D platformer of all time. I don't think it's better than Mario Galaxy or Mario Odyssey. And Super Mario 64, I love too much. It's my second favorite game of all time. I wouldn't put it over that. But it's definitely in the top 5 greatest platformers of all time, and you definitely should play this. Everybody should play this game. It is, even if you have to wait for a sale, it is a must play. It is a true video game. It is quality. The performance is incredible. The visuals are incredible. The gameplay is incredible. It is almost perfect. I have minor criticisms. Like my biggest criticisms, some redundancy with the enemy design. Sometimes you fight the same enemies too much. I wish there was more costumes. Like there's a lot of costumes, but like you should have been able to wear a costume for almost every PlayStation character you unlock. It's a little more limiting, but you still get to like be Parappa the Rapper. Or you get to be the hunter from Bloodborne. You get to be Sly Cooper or Ratchet or something like that. So it's not too bad, but like it would have been cool to like wear any costume you wanted. But like I said, this is like those are like minor criticisms. Yeah, I can't praise this game enough. This is my game of the year. I don't think anything's beating it. I don't say that lightly because I really love Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. We talked about it for like 3 episodes straight. But I think the reason why I ranked this game over Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is that I think Rebirth was bloated, and I think there's a lot of performance issues that I had. I had to change the game to fidelity mode, just playing 30 frames just to get it to look nice, because the performance mode was horrendous. Don't get me wrong, I absolutely love that game, and I think that's my solid top 2. Like I don't think anything's gonna change that unless like Dragon Age just like a 97 on Metacritic, or you know what I mean, like something just blows me away. Like what if Indiana Jones is like a 95 or 96 Metacritic, like that kind of thing, but I don't see that. So it is my game of the year, and I think it's I have a strong feeling it's gonna win game of the year. I feel like this is another It Takes Two, because the media is just, everybody's in love with it. I have not seen anything negative about this game. Even people that are like haters of PlayStation are not they're praising this game, and they're saying like, why can't Xbox do a Banjo-Kazooie game, or why can't they do Spyro or Crash or yeah, this game is universally loved, and I hope this sets a precedent for the future, that PlayStation gives us more smaller games like this. Because you know this 6-year wait for these AAA games is getting tiring. Give us these smaller games in between, and you really get the ball rolling. All right, so so I've been talking a lot. Dory, is there anything you wanted to ask me or wanted to say about Astro Bot, or is that pretty much it?
Yeah. So I mean, you know that I'm not as into platformers. Do you think I would do fairly well with this? I mean, I know it's not supposed to be super difficult, right? It's more like Spyro and less like Crash Bandicoot.
Oh, you would have no issues with this. This is more like
Okay.
No, it's not Crash at all. Crash is way harder than this. This is more like
Okay.
this is more Mario 3D. Like this is more Mario
Sure.
Odyssey than anything.
Okay, and I beat Odyssey, no sweat, really. So okay,
Yeah,
cool.
Mario Odyssey has more physics. Like I guess there's another criticism of this game is like it doesn't have like the wall jumping and like the physics that Mario has. So maybe that's the next step they take, and then if the next Astro Bot game, maybe that's what it's lacking is the more of the fluid movement. And the movement's great in this game. I'm just saying like having in Mario Odyssey, you can really come up creative things. Like you can put your hat,
Yeah,
you put the hat on everybody, and you do all these crazy flips to get on the roof and all that. This game lacks that, but I would compare this more to a Spyro level. I think a Spyro is a good comparison too, where you have to collect everything in the map, and the maps are more linear, but there's some exploration in the maps. Like Crash Bandicoot's a full on like really difficult, yeah, platformer. So
yeah, for sure.
I think you might have issues with the challenging levels, but
Right.
they're really even though there's a big difficulty spike, they're not that hard. They only took me 10 minutes at most, and I'm not like
Sure.
some amazing platformer.
Right. Yeah, yeah. I'm definitely gonna get this on a sale. It's not my genre and it's not something that really excites me, but I did like the other Astrobot games that I've played and I did enjoy them. And I mean, they didn't blow me away like I think other people. But again, it's not really my genre and it's not really um, something that I vibe with as much as as much as I did when I was a kid. But I loved Spyro and I still enjoyed some of Crash Bandicoot before I gave up on it. So I'm sure I will like this game quite a lot. Will it make my top 10 GOTY? I don't know. We'll see. But it looks like it's the best version of the Astrobot franchise or series or whatever. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I will play it probably around Christmas. It's like $60, I think. So maybe I'll get it for a Christmas present or something. But yeah, I think it looks great. I think it's a great direction. I agree with you. I hope this is the direction that other like companies just forget that through all the numbers and all the quests and all the like, big environments with huge graphics, like we just want to play a fun video game, right? Like not everything needs to be dark and brooding or have a bunch of murder. And I'm fine with those kind of games, but it's like at the same time, it's like it's nice to just have a fun game where you're celebrating the history of a really powerful, prominent video game company that defined a lot of our childhoods, myself included. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, like that's where PlayStation's missing. Like in the back in the PS2, PS3 era, like we would have like Infamous and Last of Us and Uncharted and all that, but you would also have like Tokyo Jungle and Rain and Puppeteer and like Sly Cooper. Like you needed those games to balance it out. You have a nice portfolio. Yep. Nowadays, it's Last of Us, Horizon, Ghost of Tsushima, God of War, and you're waiting
none of those games are very.
It's Spider-Man.
It's just it's Spider-Man. Yeah, I mean, Spider-Man's like the most hopeful among them, and I mean, look at what happens in those games, right? So it's like I'm not saying everything needs to be positive and cheery, but we got to have a little bit of balance here. You know what I mean? Like I loved the hell out of Spyro. It wasn't a perfect the Reignited trilogy. It wasn't perfect, but I mean, I will always like remember fondly the time that Kim and I spent playing that game. Finally, a game that she could really enjoy and play too. I mean, she's never going to play God of War. She's never going to play Last of Us. Like we could finally play a game together and have a really good time. So yeah, I hope you're right. I hope that they do more stuff like this, more stuff like Spyro. Astro Bot, etc., etc.
This is a game that you and Kim would absolutely love together to play it together.
Yeah. Like I think it's safe to say at this point that Astro Bot's basically their mascot, right?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, he literally is like a PlayStation, basically.
Yeah, without question. I mean,
yeah,
it's not a coincidence. Like when you get an error page on the PlayStation site, they use Astro Bot. He's everywhere.
Oh, I didn't even know that. That's funny.
Everywhere in the marketing, he's around. He's the mascot.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but yeah, I'm happy for you that you enjoyed it so much. I'll definitely be playing it at some point, probably this year, and hopefully before the year's up, so we can talk about it on our GOTY lists.
Absolutely. I guess I spoiled my GOTY list, but what are you gonna do?
I can't believe you, Seb.
This game is strongly my game of the year. But Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth, this was really really good too. So, yeah. It's the games after that where I'm like changing my ranking all the time. So we'll see. Anyway, So that's our show. We hit about 90 minutes. So next week, what is next week? I don't remember what I don't even remember what I planned for next week. Oh, Space Marine 2. I'm gonna play that after Astro Bot. I'm gonna get it on PC, and I'm gonna get that Marvel vs. Capcom collection that came out as well on PC. That game looks incredible for my Steam Deck. So I'm gonna talk about those two things next week, and then Dory, what are you gonna be playing? Do you have plans yet, or?
I don't have any plans. I need to get a little bit of extra money. I just started a new job, and it's every other week, so it's kind of a pain. But once I do get paid again, and I get a little bit of money from the school I go to,
Yeah.
Then I'll be cooking again. I am planning on getting Visions of Mana and maybe the Dead Rising remaster.
Yeah, this time of the year now where it's like games left and right. Like September is September is the most stacked month of the year.
The Plucky Squire is coming out soon, so I am also considering that for sure.
Yeah, I mean, do you have PS Plus or no?
No, I don't.
Okay, it's free with PS Plus day one. All right, that's our show. Thanks for watching, everybody. You all have a good night and peace. Take care.
Bye, everybody.